Welcome to T21Mom.
Hi friends, it's Mary and welcome to the T21Mom podcast, and this is episode 98. And on today's episode, I'm talking to my friend Katie, who I met at the most recent Rockin' Moms retreat in Washington. We actually met on the haunted pub crawl. Go have a listen to that episode. You'll hear Katie screaming in the background during the haunted pub crawl. It's quite funny, actually. But what we're going to talk about today is she's actually a travel agent who specializes in booking and creating memories, creating vacations and trips for special needs families. So she does all her research, like what is going to help us as a family, our kids, to have an enjoyable time when we are going on a vacation, because we want it to be memorable for all the right reasons. So let's go have a listen. Today on the T21 Mom podcast, I'm talking to a fellow rocking mom that I met at the retreat in Washington. Welcome, Katie.
Welcome. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm excited to have you on today about what we're going to talk about. So we met at the retreat, on, I think, of the now famous haunted pub crawl, which was so much fun. And today we're going to talk about something that you do that I think is fun. But before we get started, can you share a little bit about you and your family?
So my name is Katie. I have a daughter named Sloan, and I've been married. Let's see, Nicholas. We've been married 8 years now. So live in Louisville, Kentucky. Hence my accent. We have our daughter Sloan. She's 7, and it's been fun since day one. She has multiple disabilities, but I would not be able to meet the people or enjoy the life that I have without her being in it, and all the doors that she's opened, like being able to go to the mom's retreat and meeting people like you and having great haunted pub crawls. um, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Now, you're actually a travel agent, but you specialize in booking vacations for families who have a child with special needs. Obviously, you have Sloan, but how did you get into this? And I think it's something kind of a little bit recent, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It'll be 2 years next month that I've been doing this. So during the
Mhm.
pandemic, it kind of fell into my lap. I travel a lot with Sloan, and I was actually listening to a podcast that I really liked, and they did some Disney. They talked to Disney a lot and Universal, and I had just taken Sloan to Disney before the pandemic. Like the day we came back, the world closed. So they had announced that they were going to open a travel company, and I reached out to them and I was like, hey, I'm a realtor right now. I'm a realtor. I know sales. I've kind of thought about doing travel. And I was one of the first people that they hired to start this. I was with a few other girls, and really just to get that niche of helping families with special needs. There's so many people that are so scared to travel because of the unknown.
Mhm.
And like I said, I mean, we've all traveled with Sloan. Like, I would rather travel with her than take her to Target. Like, it's very odd, but she's the best little travel companion.
Oh, that's
That's
fantastic.
kind of what. Yeah. So, I've helped quite a few families, and when they call and they're like, we had the best time and I never thought I could do it because I was nervous, or, what if kid has a meltdown,
Mhm.
all these questions that we go over before they leave. But when they come back and they're like, I've never had a daughter son vacation. I've always been scared, but we got to do it. So it's like, there's so many people out there that are doing that are scared to travel. And it's like, go make those memories.
I definitely agree. And it's definitely on my bucket list now that the world has opened up more now. So, because I just feel travel is like the best education that you can have. So, and
Yeah.
let's take our kids and let them have that opportunity. Now, I know it sounds a bit obvious, but How is traveling different for us with kids with extra needs
Mhm.
than families who just have typical kids? Because I know you on your website, you mentioned about you have an entire suitcase for Sloan's medical needs. So,
Yeah.
like, what do parents do? How do they do it?
Well, I mean, it's all I know is traveling with Sloan. So I really don't know the difference except, when I go to book people. But yeah, we travel with tons more equipment. We have to, I help families and even us like think about like what if, medical wise, like what if something happens? We've had G tubes come out that need to be replaced while on vacation. So Li we have to think about those extra things. We have to think about more downtime. We have to think about, overstimulation. Again, equipment. Is the equipment gonna break? Do we have backup equipment? Do we have enough food for our picky eaters? Will they, like that grilled cheese sandwich? What so I feel like there's a lot more planning for families like ours than maybe like a typical family of just being able to pack up and get on the flight. We definitely have a few more steps, and not all disabled or special needs families are by the book. They each have their own thing, and
Mhm.
sometimes we need to make a chart and do photos of what's going to happen that day, and sometimes we just need to talk about walking on the airplane and what's going to happen. So, yeah,
Mhm. Yes, definitely a lot more steps. And I think, like you said, more planning. But I think,
yeah,
as we'll talk about it, I think it's achievable
yeah.
because I think most of us parents want to be able to like go away with our kids, but it can just be so overwhelming trying to plan everything. I just keep thinking I'm going to be more, I'm going to be more tired when I get home than when I left. But like, where do parents start? Like, if they want to go on a trip.
I'm I mean, really just picking up the phone, you can call me, get somewhat of an idea of what you wanna do. Do you want a relaxing trip or do you want a go, go, go trip? And kinda start there and then get a few dates in mind because that's gonna play a factor too, like, heat. We have to think about heat and
Mhm.
cold and that, so and then pricing. But yeah, just start there and then reach out to me or another travel agent to kind of get that ball rolling, give you some ideas on what to do if you are just like, we just want to go do something,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Now, I know before we started, like, you were chatting saying, we'll talk. I know you specialize specifically right now in Disney, but obviously you can help any of us parents. But you mentioned that cruises have been really kind of popular lately. Like, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about that and maybe why that is?
Yeah. So I've had quite a few families do cruises in the last year. And even coming up this year, I've had a huge influx of people going on cruises. And a lot of my families just feel that everything is so right there. If it's Disney or Royal Caribbean, those are probably going to be the best two that have things in place to help families like ours.
Hmm.
But everybody says that everything's just right there. They can swim if they want. They have the kids clubs or daycares close by, and like Royal Caribbean will give you a pager so you can check in on the kids. And like Disney, the characters come by all the time, so it's more one-on-one with them. And and so I think a lot more people are enjoying that everything's at one spot instead of maybe, taking a bus to all the different parks at
Sites.
Disney. Yeah,
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 exactly. Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize on the Disney cruise. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but I didn't know that the characters are on there. So how fun is that? It's almost like,
yeah,
a little mini Disney.
yeah.
So I know it sounds sort of kind of silly, but can we take our kids anywhere? Like, especially 'cause some of our kids have, maybe some mobility issues or, you know, medical issues,
Mhm.
what have you. But in your opinion, like if there's somewhere that we want to go, do you think it's achievable?
Um, I would say yes and no. I guess it just depends. We've taken Sloan to Branson, we wanted to take her to a different amusement park and kind of see Branson as a whole was a lot of fun for her, but their amusement park Silver Dollar was on like tons of hills. So by the end of it, we were dying because we were pushing her wheelchair around that whole day. So, I mean, yes and no. If you want to do something, I think that there's going to be options. And
Mhm.
again, depending on mobility, I mean, you might not be able to do everything, but we'll find something.
Okay. That's good to know. Because I think, lots of people want to go and explore the world, not, they want to get outside of their country. And, I guess I'm kind of speaking for myself because I want to do that because I've done lots of traveling before having Ainsley. And I want to show her a lot of those places that I've been to. And I'm thinking, like, there's some of them are long flights, you know, yeah, I don't think we'll be hiking up the volcano in New Zealand, but maybe we can go do something else in New Zealand. I
Right.
don't know
Yeah.
what that will be, but like things like that, I think you just have to be able to adapt, I guess.
Yeah, and then too, like, I have someone going to a that wants to go to a dude ranch. Like, I would have never thought about a dude ranch being accessible,
Mhm.
but I've contacted the Dude Ranch Association, and there's 29 dude ranches across the world that are accessible. So, too, it's kinda just knowing, like, okay, this could happen. Like, they'll be able to ride horses, but, like, again, like you said, they might not be able to do the big, long hike up the mountain. Maybe they'll just do a smaller hike around the bottom of the mountain or something.
Wow, there's actually a dude ranch association. That's cool. Oh, I love it. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just kind of like the world's your oyster. It just might look a
Right.
little bit different. How
Mhm.
you plan it and maybe some of the things you do, so okay, that's very cool to know. So,
And I think too, like, as long as you don't cram so much into a day, like I think that us as people, we are like, we're gonna spend all this money, we wanna go, 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 or we wanna do all the things. If you just take a step back and just say, we're gonna do what we can,
mhm.
then that helps tremendously too, to be in the moment and not feel like you're constantly rushing.
Yes, I think that is so true. I that's what I've thought about too. Is like, we might not get to do all the things, but maybe pick the things most that we want to do and sort of focus on that because you want it to be memorable, not like, I was dragged everywhere and things like that. You want it or you want we want to create memories for our kids and to enjoy, I think, these times that we go away and explore new things and do new things and even maybe eat new foods. Sometimes that can
Right.
be a challenge for our kids, but you know, I'm hopeful. I'm
Yes.
hopeful for Hazley. Dennis is another story. He's the picky eater, but that's okay.
Yes. I'm a very picky eater, so and yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, So I know you mentioned that Sloan has a whole extra suitcase of stuff.
Mhm.
And I know for some parents, like that is their reality is their child has maybe a lot or some extra additional medical needs. So how does that impact somebody when they're flying? Like, are there exceptions, I guess? I don't know. Like, because nowadays you got to pay for extra luggage generally. And like, do the airports give exceptions for in some
So
ways for our kids?
you cannot be charged for equipment. So if you have an extra bag of equipment, if you have extra just equipment going, they cannot charge you for that.
Okay.
Yeah, they can't. Now, you can't put your personal stuff in there,
Hmm.
makeup or things like that, but you, yeah, anything that's equipment or medically necessary, they cannot charge you. So I always bring her extra supplies, at least one extra supply on my carry-on with her. So suction canister, suction tubing, oxygen tubing, that kind of stuff. Like, and I'll bring that suitcase so that I know if something was to happen, we have that extra.
Mhm.
And then, food is a big thing, TSA. I mean, backing up to just the beginning of trying to travel, going through the airport, like they have all these resources out there. There's TSA cares that I have my clients contact a few days before they leave. And that's just basically letting someone know that I'm going to be there with a child that has a disability or special needs. And I'm possibly traveling with stuff that, maybe a little bit more liquid than allowed, or like Sloan is G tube fed. So we blend all of her food. And as much as I try to get it down to 3 ounces, now that she's getting bigger,
Mhm.
I can't, I mean, that the suitcase for food would be crazy if I broke it all down to 3 ounces. So just giving them the heads up. Also, too, you can we travel a lot, and so we have pre-check, and it's
Mhm.
$80. You go, you fill out a form, and they do a background check, and it gets you to where you don't have to take your shoes off. You don't have to open up your bag.
Oh,
And when we first got it, we weren't traveling as much. And I was like, that's $80 worth it, because kids, anybody under 18 can pair with you. So,
wow.
yeah. So, and then, so if you have a kid that doesn't, want to be touched, or, take off their shoes, take off their belt, you know, that's perfect, to go ahead and have in place, so that you can, take an extra, I don't know, like layer off
Mhm.
of that checking. And I will say, I mean, there's been times been pulled off to the side because Sloan can't get out of her wheelchair, and they have
Mhm.
to wipe down with bomb residue, like the little
Yeah.
swabs, for bomb
Yeah.
residue. And, but we kind of know that going in. So I think as long as you're prepared
Mhm.
and they're doing their job, like don't get mad at these people. Like they're doing their job,
Mhm.
done everything you can. You've called TSA cares, you have pre-check if you have pre-check. These things still happen. And then there's some airports that have lanyards that you can pick up
Mhm.
that shows, their disability as well. So again, it's becoming more and more common of people traveling with a special need or disability. And that's awesome that we're making it, we're trying to normalize it as best as possible. But again, yes, the airlines can't charge you for any type of equipment. Also, depending on travel, a big thing is that's very scary is traveling with a wheelchair. I mean,
Mhm.
that essentially is somebody's legs. And, as much as we all keep pushing to have airplanes to where they could just wheel in and walk
Mhm.
into, and they do have a few out there that are doing that. Unfortunately, there's not a lot, so people are having to, transfer onto the flight and give up their wheelchair. And,
Mhm.
wheelchairs are getting broke, and
Mhm.
it, I mean, I hate to say it, I mean, it sucks. And, what can you do? So even just maybe taking extra bubble wrap, and I hadn't even thought about this until the last time we traveled with Sloan, was, putting bubble wrap around the outside of her wheelchair, or, putting an extra pad or a pillow possibly by the arms, and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So,
Oh,
I mean,
those are great tips. I That's very interesting about the equipment. I did not know that. And then when you say it's $80, is that for each time you travel, or is that like a yearly fee or one-time
I
fee, or what is it?
yeah, I think 5 years. Don't quote me on the 80. It
Oh,
might have gone up a little bit, but it's for 5 years. So,
oh, wow, that's fantastic. I had never heard of that before. So
mhm.
that's great. It's like you said, like for kids, like, taking their shoes off, or they don't want to be touched, or like it just takes off that whole other layer of anxiety, I think, for us as parents, trying to just get onto the plane. It's a whole process in and of itself just to get onto the plane, because we all know about all the security measures that are in place. So yeah, oh, that's really great to
Yeah.
know. And I know because I traveled a little bit when Ainsley was just a baby, and I was permitted to take her stroller, like, right to the door, which was fantastic. And so I learned the first time, because I had, like, a little, like, a little basket underneath. So I
Mhm.
put, like, toys or whatever books in a bag in the basket because I didn't have room in the suitcase. And so it just all got folded up and it was put onto the cargo and it's the first thing that comes out when we got off. So it's great. And I guess like I mean Ainsley can walk, but I mean she's older now, but I would take the stroller, but they would still permit me, would they not, even though she's older?
Yes. So, and I didn't even think about that one just a minute ago. So once you get past pre-check and you go up to your gate, I mean, you get priority boarding. So once you check into the gate, if you have, a child that's autism or, whatever disability, they will let you pre-board. I think it's normally right after like military and then wheelchairs,
Mhm.
but before the family pre-board that they do. So you're kind of in the middle there. And yes, you can take the stroller, wheelchairs all the way up to the gate doors to
Mhm.
the plane. And then they'll put it under the plane and then have it ready for you when you get off the flight. We normally wait to get off the flight
Yeah.
to be towards the class because it takes a while for them to get that back up there and ready for you. And then like you can buy bags. I'm weird about germs, and so when we get to the airport, I can still kind of carry Sloan. I have a little sling that I can put her in.
Mhm.
So we'll go ahead and break down her special needs stroller and put it in a bag, and my sister or my husband or somebody will drag it down to the gate, right before you board the plane, and
Oh,
they'll
okay.
still handle it the same way. So that way it's covered. We're not holding up the line
Mhm.
and that, but yeah, they've knock on wood, it's it's been nice, and they will let you pre-board with one other person. I wish they would let you pre-board with more than one other person because, like, I have Sloan suction, I have oxygen that I have to board with, and then I normally have maybe, like, her tablet or something,
Mhm.
um, and holding her, trying to get those
Yeah.
long aisles, and the one person they have, that I could pre-board with is dragging her stroller down and handing it off sometimes doesn't help, because 'cause I'm trying
Mhm.
to do all it so I wish they would allow more than one other person. I get why they don't, but
Mhm.
normally it's only, you know, 2 people per per
Per child.
child. Yeah, family member or whoever.
Mhm.
So,
Well, that's good to know because I mean, I always hear about the pre-boarding, but I wasn't really aware that you get a little bit higher, you know,
mm,
placement for the pre-boarding. So these are
yeah.
all excellent tips. And I remember when I did travel with Ainsley, she was just a baby, but she couldn't, and under 2, you can travel without having to pay for another seat. So I know she's not gonna have a seat, but they also wouldn't let me carry her in the Bjorn, like, so that it just made it easier, like, my hands would be free. I mean, I guess, like, they told me, I think, when I was sitting down that I had to take her out. I don't know if you have any tips for parents. Like, I mean, I got really lucky because I remember on one flight, this one lady just held her the whole time, so that was good. But,
Yeah,
you might not always get that, and or it's a
right.
really crowded plane or what have you, but I don't know if you have any tips for what parents can do or if there's something that you could bring, I don't know.
So, you know, Sloane's at the age now that she has to have her own seat,
Mhm.
and she always ends up in our lap. So we have, and it's not approved in the US just yet. It's approved everywhere else for a Firefly seat to go that like clips onto the seat.
Okay.
Uh, so we've taken that with a doctor's notes. Babies, I mean, really, I know Southwest has all, when Sloan was little, would give us that extra seat in the middle for, you know, her equipment or for that extra room. But again, like we were kind of lucky. And again, and Southwest has always been great to us. I don't know. I think just being prepared, with they've had these little ear drops that are supposed to help kids when they're flying, if their ears are popping or a
Mhm.
sucker pacifier, that kind of stuff to maybe help, so that they don't get uncomfortable. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good question trying to figure out, like, are you gonna have to hold a kid for however many hours
Yeah.
you're on the flight? But, yeah, I mean, normally Sloan does end up in our lap. She doesn't like sitting there by herself.
Mhm.
That there are other little seats that are available, but the kids do have to have head control.
Oh, okay.
And yeah. Car seats, I mean, you can take a car seat on. They're FDA as long as it's, approved, and
Mhm.
it would have that sticker on there. I have seen people take a car seat, but it's just so big and bulky.
I know.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that too, and yeah, fortunately, like, I mean, now Ainsley's at the age that she would just get her own seat, but,
yeah,
because and especially with our kids, they just have the really low tone, and they do kinda just melt in you, but also Ainsley she was a big, chunky baby, she wasn't and some kinda lightweight, and I mean, I did, for the most part, get lucky when I did travel when she was a baby, but I was by myself, so it was just me, so it was a little I was so nervous the first time, but, everything went really well. So, and people for the most part are understanding, I found when I was traveling. So, and I hope that's the same for most people. I mean, kudos to you. Like, you're bringing on oxygen and everything else. Like, seriously, if you can do it, I think we can all do it.
I don't know any different, but I mean, there has been times. There was one time in particular, the flight attendant made me cry because I couldn't get Sloan down the aisle. She was, floppy because she can't hold herself up, and I had a suction on my hip and carrying her on top of the suction and the oxygen concentrator behind me, and the flight attendant was yelling. I had to sit down real quick to kinda get her adjusted, and I sat in a seat that you can't sit at if you it was like an exit row, and I was like, "I know, I just need to readjust," and so, I mean, unfortunately, yes, there are people that are still out there, but for the most part, like, as long as, again, we have everything planned, I think that it could run it, pretty smooth.
Well, that's good.
But,
Yeah, and that
yeah,
was a flight attendant. That's
yeah.
that's not
I
great.
will never forget his face, and that was, gosh, Sloan was 3 years old. So, that was forever ago.
Yeah. See, and again, words matter. You know,
Mhm.
you might
Yeah,
not remember an hour later what you said, but someone else may remember forever. So we need to be,
yeah. Yeah,
cognizant of that.
yeah, so, I mean, and there's been times that, people have said, "Oh, you're cutting," or things like that because we have pre-board, and it's, you just kinda have to be like, "Sorry." You know? Like, I don't know what you want me to say, lady, sir, whatever, but
We're all
off
going to
me
get
on the
on the
flight.
plane. Should
Yeah,
I spell it out for you what it's taken me to get on this flight? Not like what
yeah.
you've got.
And, I just recently read, and looking back, it's kind of like, oh, a lot of airlines, and I hope I'm not deterring people by saying all the bad stuff because we traveled pre pandemic at least 2 to 3 times a year with her on a flight and had great, you know, things. But we also had this person had this job and this person did this. So we had it all planned. But, by law, they have to give you adequate amount of time to get seated. So now that Sloan has a seat that I have to snap together and, position on the, flight seat,
Mhm.
that they have to give me that adequate time before they can let someone else board behind me to be able to set that up. So do all I have not seen where they have given me that much time. I do try to hurry up and quickly do it, but it has not affected me yet.
Mhm.
I've been able to like slide in and stuff, but I mean, I didn't know that until this year that they have to give you that time. And so, speak up if you need that time and you feel like you're being rushed, speak up because you're in the right.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
That's excellent advice. So I'm hoping that maybe next year that we can go to Disneyland. I have fond memories going there as a kid. And I know that that's kind of your specialty is the Disney trips. But I think for a lot of parents, they might go, "Oh, I don't know," because Disney is big. There's a lot of walking. is busy. There's long lineups. It can be noisy. It just seems way too overwhelming at times just thinking about that. But what can you do to help us special needs families who want to go to Disney? Because I think for probably most kids, that's a dream is to go to Disney and maybe some parents too. But it just almost seems a little daunting to make this trip not only exciting, but memorable for all the right reasons.
Yeah. So Disney is very special. And again, going back into travel, like I think that's being with Sloan, and each time that she went to Disney, she hit some type of milestone. Like the first time she looked at Daisy, she just laughed at a ride this past time we were in Florida, like on cue, where it should, like belly laugh, and I lost it. So
Aw.
mom that's crying. So yes, like take that Disney trip because you are going to have these core memories that you're both doing, and it's so worth it when you're sitting there and they see, their favorite character come by in the parade. And let me tell you, Disney is fantastic, and there are probably people that have not had great experiences, but I think if it kindness goes a long way at Disney, I think, and so a lot of times if something is to happen, cast members will help you a little bit more if you were a little bit kinder to them.
Mhm.
Um, so getting ready for Disney, it's exciting. It is kind of scary. Disney we've done Disney without, it's called their DAS pass, their disability pass.
Mhm.
And looking back, we did it was a lightning lane at that point, or not lightning lane, it was the, uh yeah, lightning lanes before the Genie Plus, took over, and they we we did that versus the disability pass, and looking back, it was like we were constantly running around one side of the park to the other, and we weren't enjoying it. Now,
Mhm.
we use the disability pass, and Disney has it to where you can sign up 30 days before so that you're not signing up in the park like we used to have to. So you sign up 30 days before, you can pick 2 rides before you go for each park, and it's a whole system, and this service gives you a return time. So when you walk in the park, you can pick your first ride with that one. I mean, you already have 2 scheduled if you scheduled 2 ahead of time. But as soon as you walk in the park, you can request a ride, and that'll give you a return time. If there's a 60-minute wait on Peter Pan, it's gonna give you a return time of 60 minutes from that time. So you request it on your phone, and you have any time from that return time to the end of the park until the park closes to use that. You don't have to be in a rush to get there right at your return time.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
so
Okay.
that big difference. Yeah, so if you've gotta stop for a potty break, if you've gotta stop for, just a mental break, you're not rushing our little kids with their small little feet and across the park. So, I mean, granted, you can only request 1 ride at a time, so you have to fulfill that ride before you request the next one,
Mhm.
but it's still nice to let the kids be kids and kind of look around, or, get distracted by the parade, or so Disney does really good with that. They also, I mean, I see characters going out of their way to kids that, have some disabilities, or, I know not all disabilities are visible, but I have seen them kind of go out of their way for like a kid that was just standing off on their own, or, you know, a kid that is in a wheelchair. Like they've really take it a step further to let those people, to let people feel included. A lot of the character meet and greets don't do the disability pass, but a lot of the workers will pull you to the side and say, and kind of do the disability pass for you, so that you
Mhm.
can wait and overhear in an area that's not as stimulating while you're waiting to meet that character. So that's another thing. I have had clients, and I have read, breakdowns, kids, there's triggering, they have meltdowns, stuff happens. And if you go, I know in the heat of the moment, it could be hard. But if you go to the nearest cast member while something's happening, they can help. Like they are trained to help to notice a kid that might be having a breakdown, a kid, they are trained to kind of help with those situations. I have had a client had to leave the Star Wars area and they turned the music down so that this kid could have a second to get out of that area. I
Wow.
will say Sloan gets overwhelmed in that area in particular. So it did not surprise me that this kid got overly stimulated and had a moment and they didn't make a big deal about it. And I think that's what Disney does really well is they don't make a big deal about what's going on.
Hmm.
I mean, you get the people that stare or whatever, but you can look past that. Their cast members are definitely like, okay, well, let's move you out, let's move you to a situation or an area to calm down, or, what can we do to help, like turning down the music or, getting you to a quiet space. So Disney really does go above and beyond when it comes to that. The changing tables aren't as good as I
Hmm.
would have liked. They help with so many things, and they have so many other things in place, like special viewing areas for wheelchairs, or for the fireworks or the parade. They have those viewing areas. They have tons of rides that kids with any type of disability could ride. Some is just now starting to hold her head up. But I mean, I think there was like 36 rides that she could ride now or even before now that are boat rides and things that so she can still be a kid. And I think Disney does that very well to still let the kids be kids. But yeah, changing kids, they have the first aid area, which has been they are very welcoming. Those are normally at the very front of the park. That's the only bad
Hmm.
thing. First aid area, they have like a little table like you would if you were at the doctor's office. That lifts up and goes down. That they are more than happy to let you use to change a diaper. They do have the baby changing stations, and those are bigger than a typical like bathroom pull
Hmm.
down. Again, that's at the front of the park in most of the parks. And, so it's not throughout the park. There's a few that I can, once you start planning, you can kind of go, okay, this is a good one, or this is normally the cleanest if you have to put a chuck, down on the floor or something,
Hmm.
which is not.
I've done that.
So, yeah. So let's, up our game a little bit on that one. But
Mhm.
yeah, so
It,
they well in other areas.
wow, it sounds like that they're really training their staff. That's amazing, and how heartwarming for us as parents to know that, because it's supposed to be a magical place. But then when you add in like our kids with, differences, it might not be, but it sounds like they're really kind of stepping up their game, so that all kids can really have an amazing and enjoyable time. And like, and 36 rides that Sloan can go on, like
Yes.
that's a
Yeah.
lot of rides.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that and that's probably why I have such a deep love for it. It's one of the places I feel that she can actually be a kid and
Mhm.
be around other kids and hear laughter and again, people are going to judge, but you know, kids have breakdowns all the time at Disney. Like we'll be walking through and there's a kid throwing a fit, and I'm like, well, someone's not doing that, and that's a typical kid, and it's because that parent probably didn't take that afternoon off for a nap. So it's like
Mhm.
I kind of look at them and I'm like, I have my stuff together. It's not. It's I don't know. I don't know if it sounds horrible, but
No.
it's like because trust me, Sloan has had multiple fits while we've been there, but it's just kind of like, oh, a typical kid's having a fit too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's nice to see that that happens to other parents as well, not just the same.
Right.
So so if we're planning a trip, whether it's to Disney or wherever, like, also
Mhm.
accommodations, like, I remember just recently I read about a woman, she did go to Disney actually, and I can't remember the hotel that she stayed at, but she just raved about it, and she actually herself was a travel agent, but never told anyone until the end. But I think she gave them the heads up about her son, who I think was autistic. I can't really remember the details, but, like, are there accommodations out there that will cater to our kids? Like, maybe I think if I recall correctly, I think they even put, like, a beanbag chair in the room, and they even asked, like, what foods her son would eat. I mean, I that to me sounds exceptional, but, like, are there I guess what I'm trying to ask is, I'm assuming
Mhm.
there are some accommodations are gonna be better than others in accommodating us. Like, you Sloan's in a wheelchair. Can she even get through the door in some hotel rooms? I don't know. Like, things like that.
Yeah, and before we normally don't do like when she was smaller, handicap accessible rooms. Disney has great rooms at some of their newer hotels that still have plenty of room, so we don't have to take a handicap accessible room, and it can be there for someone that truly needs it.
Mhm.
But no, Disney's really good. Like their cruises, all the doors are wide enough for a wheelchair to go through. I think it's the power wheelchairs that need the stateroom, the bigger stateroom. But as long as you know going in, you can plan for that. But dietary, I had a client, her daughter only liked blueberries. And every day she said, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, are they gonna have enough blueberries on this cruise for this kid?" And she said that every meal they had a bowl of blueberries for her. And so I do think as long as you just give the heads up,
Mhm.
I think they're pretty accommodating. Every time we do stay at a hotel, I ask for the bottom floor because, I don't,
Oh, yeah.
she so, and then there's been one time that we didn't get that because, you're not guaranteed. And the lady was like, "But I have you close to the elevator." So I was fine with it. We did it and it was fine. And she had said, she was like, "If you get there and it gets to be too much, like let me know and we'll see about, changing your room." But it wasn't. And it's still nice to know. I've had where people have gotten sick. Well, even Sloan, like we've had to use the Disney hospital or
Jeez.
well, the Celebration Hospital.
Yeah.
And they don't make a big scene. The ambulance had to pick her up
Oh,
and
wow.
they don't make a big scene about it. We missed a day at the park and then they were like, "Hey, don't check out of your room. Come just let us know." They checked in with us and they were like, "Do you want an extra day?" I think for like $100 extra or something, like we'll give you another day. Keep your park day ticket is good for a year. So again, like it's all about that communication. I've had clients that got COVID while they were at Disney, and Disney was like, "Stay in your room, we'll bring you room service." So I think like if you're having a moment and you need a moment, like I said, being nice and even just asking for it, you 9 times out of 10, they're gonna try to accommodate you.
And in your experience, like most hotels would be accommodating, like, just in general?
So far, yes. Like as I do a lot of business with Marriott, and we've been trying out a lot more Marriott hotels since I became a travel agent. Because we travel to Cincinnati, which is like 2 hours from our house for doctor's appointments. So I know the hotels by there that I like, and again, they're Marriott. And then so now that I became a travel agent, and trying to expand to different hotels, I do think they do cater a little bit more. They might not be. I mean, as accommodating, but they can at least try to help you or put you in the right, you know, way or, push you in the right direction on how to get what you need. So, yeah, I mean, knock on wood with any really big hiccups with a hotel.
Oh, that's
So,
great. And, like, I think what you said about
yeah.
just letting them know what your needs are. And I think and I've always been a big believer that kindness goes a long way. You know, if you're kind to them, nice, and you ask, I always believe all they can do is say no, but you won't know unless you ask.
Right,
So, what's the harm in just asking, "Hey, can you do this for us?" or
right.
"What can you do to help us?" So, because they want you to come back. So, They want to try to
Right.
make it as good a stay for you as possible so that you'll tell people like you have just done or their friends or whoever so that it will encourage others to come, to come back. So that's so great to know. You know, I see, the world of social media. I see people they're traveling all over with their kids and all over the world with their families and you know I admit sometimes I get a little envious when I see these pictures, wondering if I'll be ever able to do all those things with Ainsley. Long flight, different food, language, but I want to still expose her to all of those things. But then I kind of go, am I capable of doing that? But I think you kind of nailed it. It's just, I don't want to say, lower your expectations, but I think be a realist about what you're
Yeah.
able to do on a vacation. Like I said, hey, I don't think we'll be hiking up that volcano, but maybe we can find a smaller hike or something else to do, you know, that can
Yeah.
be just as fun. But, you know, and and I also want to go to Europe. That's another place that I want to go to. I've never been to Europe in the next year or two. And generally whenever I've trusted travel, because it's always just been me, I just do everything myself, like, book the flights, the hotel, all the sightseeing. But you can do all of that with our kids in mind, right?
Yes. Yeah. And, equipment in mind too. So I have different companies that I work with for like oxygen delivery, wheelchair delivery, if you don't want to take your wheelchair, stroller delivery, that kind of stuff too. So yeah, I mean, getting it all done, helping plan, doing the airlines, just like I said, walking through TSA, getting the flights booked and hotels and different excursions. Yeah, definitely can help with all of that.
That's fantastic. So, as we've talked about, like just the thought of maybe traveling with our kids can be overwhelming. And but what are some key things do you think that parents need to just keep in mind when planning a trip with our kiddos? I mean, we just sort of talked about it, like, be a realist about maybe changing our expectations. Like I said, I don't want to lower expectations, but maybe changing our expectations. But what are maybe like two or three tips you think that parents just need to keep in mind when they're maybe planning a trip that's, not maybe their typical trip? Like, maybe it's not going to Disney necessarily, but maybe somewhere else.
Um, I say just do it. I think us as parents, we overthink because we constantly either like want to apologize for our kids or like have our kids adapt to the world. But no, like let's not overthink it. They're still kids or they're adults. Either one, like let them enjoy life. You need to enjoy life as well. I don't apologize for the stuff that I need. So why
Mm.
apologize for my kids? So I think we overthink it as parents. And so just not overthink it. And I do think that we do need to plan, but plan for a backup. Maybe we need to do that resort day instead of, hiking or, so a plan B for a day or two
Mhm.
is always a good fallback. And you're paid for these hotels and they're normally not cheap.
Mm.
So I want to enjoy that hotel and, for a day. And then, yeah, I tell everybody to take a rest day. I don't, in the middle, everybody needs a rest and
Mhm.
everybody enjoy it a little bit more if you take that rest day and not push as much. I mean, again, society, we're a go, 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 and you're on vacation, you know,
Mhm.
take that extra nap, sleep in, you know.
I love a good nap. We all need more naps. So summer is coming, and finally we're getting some decent weather here in Vancouver. It's hasn't been great here, but and people are starting to plan their vacations. But if someone's going on a trip and they need that expertise that you have in planning it, where can people find you?
I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I probably do more on Instagram, but it's Katie underscore unlocking the magic travel. I also have a Facebook group that's called Unlocking Special Needs Travel. And we have over 500,000 people on there. And so if I don't know the answer, somebody possibly, somebody on that can help. So get on there. My services are free and I think that's a big thing that people don't understand. I get paid by the people you book. So Disney, Marriott, all of those places pay me, and it's not any extra additional cost to you. So might as well use my, you know, all my certifications, knowledge and stuff for your trip. So yeah, just give me a call, send me a message. My phone's on me all the time, so I don't mind. Even if you're not using me and you just have a question, I don't mind to help answer some questions for that
Oh,
trip. So
oh, that's fantastic. And I think that's really great for parents to know. They always think, oh, this is just going to cost me so much more, because I'm, using somebody who's a bit more specialized than just the travel agent down the road. But I think it's good to know that. And also, I think it's also good for parents to know they've got someone in their corner, someone who understands their needs, you know, and their expectations and but also their desires to want to go and do these different things. Because like I said, I think it's just so important to get out there, see the world, get our kids out there,
oh yeah,
learning, educating, doing all
making
that.
memories.
Hmm?
Yeah,
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
memories. Yeah.
Yeah, making memories. That's awesome. Well, we'll definitely put a link in the show notes with your different places that people can find you. So that's awesome. And I know that like I'll be, and I've seen your posts about Disney and stuff. So I'm definitely going to be, it's in my mind, you know, I'll be calling you to get my trip to Disney and my other trips because I think if you have just that extra layer of help or expertise, it can just make it just so much easier and just so much more enjoyable, like for everyone, not just your kid, but for yourself as well.
Yes. Yeah. For sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie, so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure, and I'm so happy to see you. I'm sorry that you're not going to be at the retreat this year, but maybe we'll have to figure out a haunted pub crawl in some other location.
Yeah, I love it. Y'all aren't allowed to have too much fun without me, though.
I'll let them know.
Like,
Thank you.
thank you.
I really enjoyed chatting with Katie. I learned so much. I remember when I was on my own and Ainsley was really little, like probably a year or two old, I kept thinking, am I ever going to be able to take a vacation again? Like, how am I going to do it? And I had no idea that there's all sorts of help out there. And, and Katie has really made me think, okay, I can do this. We can go on trips again. The world's starting to open up again. And I'm so looking forward to taking those trips and getting out there and seeing the world. Like I used to do a lot of traveling before I had Ainsley, and I haven't done really that much since she was born. So I think she's old enough now and she's, a lot more mobile than when she was younger. So I think it's way more achievable. So here are some of my takeaways. I had no idea there was this thing called pre-check. And as Katie mentioned, it's $80 and you fill out a form and they do a background check and it kind of essentially lets you sail through security. You don't even need to, your child doesn't even need to remove their shoes. You don't even have to open your bag. So imagine all that time you're saving, like not having to deal with that hassle. And especially if your kid has sensory issues, doesn't want people touching them, for $80, it's worth it. And I think she said it was good for 5 years, which is awesome, I think. So, and I think it's well worth the money. And I also didn't know that, my takeaway number 2 is that you get priority boarding if you have a child like with autism or another disability such as Down syndrome. And we talked about like the lanyards, and I know in Vancouver they have the sunflower lanyard for kids with autism, but I'm sure you could use that for any disability, just so that others are aware that there's a disability, because sometimes it's not always obvious. I know in our kids, it's obviously a much more visible disability. So people are aware that they have Down syndrome, but you can get priority boarding, so it alleviates some anxiety. You can get settled and legally, they have to give you time to board. You know, you have a right to take a little bit of extra time to just get everything together and, you know, get seated and get organized, because it's just so stressful. You know, traveling just at the best of times can be stressful, but then you add in, you know, a child with some extra needs. It certainly adds an additional layer to things. And also what Katie said, I mean, she takes an entire extra suitcase for her daughter Sloan. So, you know, takeaway number 3 is that you cannot be charged for bringing on like an extra bag that's full of your equipment, because I always wondered about that. Is like, how do people do it? So, you know, if you have to take like oxygen or, you know, G-tube supplies or what have you, you can pack that all in another bag and you're not going to be charged for that. So that again takes away another level of stress. And my next takeaway, number 4, which I thought was so cool, is that she said that there are 29 dude ranches across the world that are accessible. So literally there is something out there for everyone. If your kid is into horses and likes to ride or that kind of thing, you know, there's 29 of them all around the world. I don't know where they are, but I'm sure Katie could tell you. But I think that's fantastic. And I know Katie really loves Disney. And number 5, you know, we talked a lot about Disney, but, you know, she really talked about Disney really, you know, steps it up. They really go that extra step to, you know, make our kids and other kids with disabilities to feel included, because Disney is such a magical place. And I think that is so wonderful for them to really train their employees and really just go that extra mile for our kids. And because, you know, it also means a lot to us as parents, I think, right? And, you know, number 6, cruises. I've been really thinking a lot about this, that I would like to do a cruise to somewhere, I don't know where, because everything is there, you know, and they have kids clubs. You can arrange to have support for your child. You know, some cruise lines are going to be better than others. I believe Royal Caribbean is one that does a lot, and there, you know, there's, I mean, sure, if you just ask whatever cruise line, you could find out what they can offer you. And what a way to go and, you know, see the world. You can make stops in the different ports, but you still have everything on board that you need. And, you know, and number 7 is just go out there and do it. You know, Katie can help you plan a trip. You know, if it's a dude ranch you want to go on, a cruise, a resort, if you want to just go to an all-inclusive resort, there's those out there too that will cater to families like us, that, you know, where, you know, because I think it's important as a family that you also get a little bit of downtime, that you're not 24/7 with your kid, because I don't think that's really a holiday. We all need a time to recharge and just have a little bit of downtime. So you can find Katie at her website at unlockingspecialneedstravel.com, and we'll definitely put a link in the show notes. And let me know what you think of this episode. Do you have a place that you want to go to that you've been thinking about but wasn't sure how you could do it? You know, let me know. I would love to hear about it. And like I always say, I would love to hear from you. Tell me your stories, what's going on in your life, you know, what kind of things that you want to hear about on the podcast. I would just like to know and love to hear from you. And I promise I'll reply. And it would also really mean a lot if you could leave a review and a rating on Apple and Spotify, so that we can become a little bit more searchable for others in the Down syndrome community. And also let your friends know about the T21Mom podcast, because word of mouth is a powerful thing. So keep on loving on your rockin' kiddos, and I'll see you next time.